Hello and welcome to Conversations with Creatives. My name is Esther Stanford, and this week I am joined by Stephanie Farrell Moore. I'm so glad I said that correctly because I have been calling her Farrell for ages. I can only put it down to the fact that my very good friend who I do my podcast Limited Time Only, our podcast Limited Time Only, is Susie Riddell. And that's all I'm putting it down to, although Steph does do a good version of happy, so maybe that's what it's about. But Steph is brilliant, as all the guests are on this, I believe. She is an actor, she's a voiceover actor, she is an author, she is a poet, she's had a book of poetry published, and she's a creative. She's really inspiring. And as I've said before, part of the reason for beginning March House and the Conversations with Creatives is I want to explore how people make creative lives work and what that looks like, because we are rarely just one thing. And Steph is definitely somebody who is creative in many different ways. We talk about loads of different things, and one of the things I like about doing this is I have lots of questions, but then you don't quite know where it's going to go. I don't like to drive it too much. I just like to see what happens. I want it to be a conversation as opposed to an interview. And we talk a lot about neurodivergence with this, and how a lot of creatives' minds work in a slightly different way. People who have creativity as a job. We talk about, she's a little bit younger than me, I think, but we talk about how getting to a certain age, you sort of lose those layers of performing a person and coming back to who you are at your very core. And maybe some of us have created more exuberant characters that are there all the time, where maybe we're more introverted. We talk about a health journey that she went on and how that sort of helped her with her creativity, and how motherhood was a catalyst for creativity. Anyway, I've spoken far enough. You'll see what we talk about when you watch it. And we do talk about visibility as well as a creative, which is where we're going to start. I'll see you at the end. I'm not sure if there's a very slight lag, but that's fine. I don't know if it's mine, but whatever. But thank you so much for giving me your time and coming and talking to me.
Thank you for asking me to talk to you. It's like my favorite thing to talk about, so I'm really delighted.
Brilliant. Well, I'm
content.
Say that again, sorry.
I love what you're doing, and I love all your content. Like, I could read and listen to
thank you.
stories and things about creativity all day.
Well, I'm really sort of at the beginning of this journey, because I have stopped and started this so many times, and it's been calling to me for years. And then I keep thinking, well, should I be really putting myself at the center of it, or should it be more like just posts and more anonymous, or should I be literally the host coming to my house? Or it's all that kind of like logistical stuff that I can overthink, but I'm finding my feet with it. But I don't know if you're like that. Do you get like that with creativity, where you think?
I do, and the thing is, it's so funny because I love seeing your face and hearing your input on your page. So, like, for me, that's great when you're the face of it, and I can feel what you're about. But so many people have said to me in the past, oh, you should be doing more videos and, stories about what you're doing. And there's just part of me that goes, oh, I don't want to do that. So I find it really inspiring, but I think you should keep doing that. And also it's something that I think I'm going to probably have to just get over and start doing more often as my work evolves, really.
I think it's weird, isn't it? I have no problem talking to camera, but the problem I have is the self-trust, because I have so many different thoughts that I'm a verbal processor. So I talk out loud to work out what the hell it is I think, because I've got so many thoughts in my head. And then I think, what if I put something out? And then I need to be sort of certain that that's what I think and feel, and I think there's a fear that I'll put something else, and then like 2 weeks later, I didn't mean that, I should need to take it down, or it's a sort of an overthinking. And I suppose that comes with confidence the more you put yourself out there, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then you add in like perimenopause and not being able to remember what you're train of thought actually is, or what the word
Yes.
was or something, and it's like, oh God, I should just stay quiet.
Yeah, it's and I definitely go back and forth between how much of me should I be putting out there. But I, like you, if I see somebody, it's the person you connect with, isn't it? And it's
Yeah,
and that's what you get drawn into their world, and then that's who you want to see them. You feel like you
yeah,
know them,
yeah.
and you align with somebody. So yeah, put your beautiful face out there, Stephanie Farrell Moore. Although I
Okay.
did call you Pharrell once. How do you
I
say
mean,
your
oh, just make me sound much more glamorous than I actually am.
how do you say, is it Farrell or
Oh, well, yeah.
Farrell? Yeah, okay. I won't keep calling you Pharrell. So
I will.
talk to me about your creativity, because you do so many things. And one of the things that is of great interest to me, and the reason why I wanted to start doing this, is I think I'm always looking, I'm sort of creatively quite free, but I'm also always looking at the rules. Well, how do I make this life work? And there is no linear path with this at all. And you do so many different things. And I love that. And I think I have come to the realization that I can't just be put in one path. And I don't think many creatives can. And so hearing other people's lives and stories and seeing how they make that work, I think is brilliant. Um, were you a very creative child?
Yes, I was. Not that I was probably aware that that's how you would define it, but yeah, I was always making a mess. Actually, when you asked me before the podcast, one of the questions was, what drew you to creativity, and I do think it was the mess and the noise. So all the activities that you could be too much or spill over or not stay in the lines always appealed. So yeah, whether it was singing, dancing, dressing up, using, my mum's makeup for things that were not on my face. And um, yeah, anything that didn't require sitting still and having to be quiet, really.
Yes. Y- Yeah, because you did you find that because I think particularly all children like this, but particularly little girls, I think there's a particular way to behave. And so if you don't feel that you are that, there's something quite freeing about being able to play and that being allowed, that actually being acceptable.
Yeah,
Did you have a preferred sort of type of creativity, or was it just about expressing yourself and being allowed to do that?
it's funny because when I think back, I have some really clear, vivid memories. And one of them is sitting really quietly on like the windowsill of a Velux window in one of the first houses that I lived in, writing in a notebook poems about the seasons, which is actually ironic because my poetry book is about seasons of a different kind. So on the one hand, I was really happy being solitary and quiet and contained, but on the other hand, it was all about the clowning around and the music and being seen and dressing up. So I couldn't tell you what was my preferred medium at that stage. I think just all of them. Although a photo that repeatedly comes up is when I just done a dance show when I was about 4, I think. And I refused to get off the stage at the end of our routine. That's a tough thing. And B, I wouldn't take off my bunny rabbit headgear. So there's a picture of me sleeping in that for the rest of the week. So yeah, all of the things had a place in my childhood, I think.
Do you find that because you sound I identify a lot with what you're saying, in that I enjoyed the laughter or the feel of a crowd and being up on stage. I remember going to see Little and Large when I was about 6 or 7 at the Wolverhampton Grand and being asked to get up on the stage and running up there and being gutted that Sid Little was the one that spoke to me, because I'd cut my finger on the way in and I'd got a handkerchief wrapped around it, and I remember thinking, oh, I've got the unfunny one, and but looking out into the darkness and thinking, oh, this is it, this is where I'm supposed to be. And
Yeah.
then writing plays and stuff and enjoying almost doing stand-up routines for my family, but equally really needing time to myself a lot of quiet, to be left alone, to journal, to think, no stimulation. I personally, that's taken me a long time as an adult to accept that that is still who I am, and that actually that's okay, because I think society tells us that we're supposed to behave in a certain way, but actually I'm two sides of this, it's you get this, or I'm like, nobody talk to me, I want to be left alone. Is that something that you were able to take into adulthood, sort of the respect of both of those sides, or is that something that you lost for a bit?
I think I definitely lost it for a bit. And I think going on from what you said is there's so much in the expectation. And when people start to see you in a certain way, I became known as like the extroverted one, the wild one, always the first up to dance at a party, or, always the first one to put my hand up to do a presentation, or, perform. And so that becomes your identity. And so even when it doesn't feel like that's what you feel inclined to do, you sort of almost feel obliged to rise to the occasion and to keep up that identity. Whereas I think it's taken me, I would say it was in the last 10 years, if not sort of the last 8 years, really, since my health journey, to accept that actually I am much more at home in the introverted side of myself, and that that's okay. And it doesn't matter if people are used to seeing you a certain way. They just have to, come around to, your changing identity. And we are meant to change, but it can feel quite scary, especially if you're not being, if people aren't mirroring the person that you think you are, or it might change friendships or relationship dynamics. And also the other thing for me was giving up alcohol really shifted where I was socializing and who I was socializing with and how people saw me. So, yeah. When you go through this sort of perimenopausal shift as well, you start to become more confident really in knowing what you actually like to do and who you want to spend your time with and what brings you joy. And it's trusting that. And I think you touched on that earlier. It's that self-trust of, no, this is what I want to say. This is what I enjoy doing. And it doesn't matter who I was before. This is what feels real and authentic right now.
I think it's weird, isn't it, when you're perceived in a certain way. I think when I hit about 13, I know when I hit about 13, I went to a new high school and I left most of my old friends behind. And I was determined that I was going to be considered funny, gregarious, attractive, because I hadn't had any of those. I was quite quiet at primary and middle school. So then I think I just turned the dial up and let almost too hard into that. And that is a part of my personality, but you kind of do almost get stuck there, don't you? There is an expectation that that is who you are. So you go into a room and you sort of perform this gregarious person, but actually you're right. I think particularly the last few years, I'm 48 now, and there is sort of this realization of I'm exhausted. And actually this isn't I don't think this is actually completely who I am. I think this is just a person who survived. And yes, this is an element of my personality, but I've turned the volume so high up on Last One Off the Dance Floor, Esther, which I still do love, don't get me wrong. But actually the person inside is actually probably quieter and more reflective and a bit deeper, and it's hard to it's hard when you're perceived in a certain light, isn't it?
It is.
Did you create a personality in some ways?
Yes, and like you, I went to several different schools growing up because we moved around for my dad's job. And one of the biggest shifts was moving from Scotland to England. And I was like, I didn't want to stand out because I think I was early teens at the time and just wanted to fit in. So one of the things I did was like, I'll just change my accent to be English and everyone will think I'm from here and I'll just fit in. So there's this whole performance going on, and my parents would pick me up and be like, why are you talking like that?
Oh, shut up, mother.
And then I would take on the kind of class clown to sort of, perform and try and make friends, which obviously doesn't always go that well. And I was definitely quite young, or innocent for my age, shall we say. I didn't go through puberty until a bit later, so I was still wanting to sort of mess around while other girls were wanting to be like cool and grown up. But then I remember really clearly one time having to do an English presentation, and because I was so nervous in front of all these new girls, my English accent sort of disappeared and my Scottish accent came out. And it was the first time they'd heard that, and everyone was like, "What? Why is she talking like that?" And I felt so exposed and mortified, and there was this real sort of split in my identity, I think, because I just felt like I wasn't quite sure who I was. And I think that's why acting really from then on was always the preferred option for such a long time, because it meant that I could just take on somebody else rather than using my own voice. Whereas now, being older and more comfortable in who I am and also what I believe in and have to say and share and express, I'm quite happy speaking in my own voice, or I don't feel like I need the performing side as much as I used to.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I totally understand that. And there's also something quite cathartic, isn't there, about acting, in that you can shout, cry, express, and also there are boundaries, even when you're improvising. Well, my character, I know who this character is and how they would perform. Whereas in myself, will this be judged, or is this acceptable, or am I being too much, or whereas I'm performing, so it's fine. I'm just being a character and leaning into that. I'm aware that you're neurodiverse. When did you become aware of that?
Officially, I think it's about 7 years ago now, 6 or 7 years ago. But I always felt like there was something going on. I don't want to say like I felt like there was something wrong with me, but I felt like I worked differently, or my brain processed things differently to other people. And I think actually that drama and the performing arts were my saving grace at school, because it was my hyper focus and my passion, and I could find my belonging in those groups of people. So when I had that in my life, it was sort of the things I struggle with weren't so obvious. Whereas as I got older and I had less of that in my life, especially when becoming a mom and having to sort of organize other people as well as myself, those struggles become more apparent. But then finding out that I have ADHD, a lot of things clicked into place, and made me feel accepting, I think, of some of the struggles that I had. It always took me a lot longer to get my head around things, and I think what you see in young girls, especially that have any kind of neurodivergence, is there's a lot of anxiety underneath. So we're always working that bit harder to make sure that we don't get anything wrong or forget something, or we're holding in a lot of the too muchness, so then you might have outbursts at home, or not be able to kind of emotionally regulate because you're like a tightly coiled spring, or masking so much. And actually, in a neurodivergent fashion, I've now forgotten what the original question was.
Oh, well, that's okay. I think it was when you found out about 6 or 7. You said 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
What drew you to go and get the? Did you had a diagnosis?
I did, yeah. And the reason I even sort of started looking at symptoms, I really hate that word, or behaviors, was because I was having. I noticed some interesting patterns of behavior with my youngest son, Buddy, from a sensory perspective, and just from a kind of constant motion and struggling with noise and emotional regulation. So as we do, I was Googling, and then I saw that the ADHD profile, and I sort of went, oh my goodness, this is me. So then I went down that rabbit hole, and actually in finding out about myself and in getting that diagnosis and making loads of changes in my own life, I've been able to help him, and actually we have not had any assessment for him now yet, and he's managing really well in life and school. So I'm not sure how that will end up going, but for now, because I know myself so well and I can see that the patterns in him, I can almost preempt his needs and give him a vocabulary for it. So I think he would classify himself as being neurodivergent, but we don't have an official label or diagnosis as such. But I think that's often the way for women our age is they don't realize until they start looking out for their kids, and then they go, hang on a minute, these are things I've been struggling with my whole life. And I didn't realize that that wasn't normal, or I didn't realize that wasn't how everybody else was experiencing the world. Like, I didn't understand how people could just follow a set of instructions and not having some kind of absolute crisis about it, or even, still to this day, I cannot follow a recipe if anybody is talking to me, or if I've got anyone coming around for a meal, I have to have done all of the preparation or have something like pre-made before. That's just incomprehensible to me to think that I could manage to do that when someone else is in the room or trying to talk to me. I mean, it's hard enough when I'm by myself, let alone Ian adding in, a surround sound environment.
Oh God, I'm exactly the same. When we have guests over, my husband cooks and I go out in front and I entertain and I fill glasses and I keep everyone talking I get really overwhelmed if I cook and somebody comes. I have no diagnosis, but rather like you, my daughter is neurodivergent, and then looking into that, I realised and then that I probably am. I have a sister. We have different mothers. She has recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and on my mother's side there's a lot of autism and ADHD. And it's a weird thing, isn't it? It's a really weird feeling, because on the one hand, there is for me personally, and I don't know, and this is a question in a way, but I felt a real sense of relief and acceptance. This is who I am. Okay, that's why I can't do things in a normal way, and that's why if I'm going to tidy the kitchen up, I need to put House of Pain on if I'm going to load the dishwasher, otherwise I literally can't do it. Why can't I do these basic things, and why does it all have to be gamified or interesting, or for me to even attempt the boring stuff? But there is also a real sense of grief that I feel around that, of, oh God, like if I'd have known. And actually, Susie and I on our podcast Limited Time Only, we interviewed Kate, I don't need to look up how to say her surname, Maria Seth, who presents the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. We interviewed her a couple of days ago. And I had found my report when I was at the loft. I picked up my, what would be year 6. It says year 2, but it was middle school. Year 6 report, and it says, Esther is a dreamer. She reads aloud very well, but she's a dreamer. Esther doesn't retain facts for her exams. She works well in class. She's quite quiet, but she works well in class. But I'm surprised she doesn't retain the facts. And you go, oh my God, I did not achieve what I could have achieved at school. I've always had not a chip, but just a feeling of being a bit stupid when I know I'm not. Why couldn't I get the grades? Why couldn't I? And there's like a real sense of grief. Have you experienced that feeling?
Yeah. And I think it's almost a bit of a continual process, because sometimes I'll feel something and I'm like, oh God, I should be over this by now. But you get like flashbacks to certain situations at school, for example, or feelings. The other day, something came up, and there was one school that I went to, and I was always in trouble for talking too much. And I remember they'd put photographs up on the wall of what the class had been doing, and there was one of me sort of sitting animated at a table, and the comment was something like, oh, there's Stephanie talking again, or something. You just feel like, gosh, I was just so enthusiastic about
yes.
But when you have to behave or be quiet in certain school environments, you just feel so stifled. And then I developed this perfectionism around schoolwork and grades, and I was always just like working really late and over revising for things and getting myself in such a panic, because I felt like if I could get A's and be right and doing like everyone else was doing, then I was the same, and life would be okay, but
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. And actually, that's another thing, going back to what we were saying earlier about leaning into this introverted side. You, you don't have the stamina or the adrenaline left by this point if you've spent so much of your life in that fight or flight mode, trying to survive in a system or an environment that's really working against your profile, and keeping
Yeah.
up this masking. It's no wonder that so many of us burn out and can't sustain it.
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard, isn't it? I remember doing a project once and working so hard on it into I was gonna say the wee small hours. That's 'cause I'm talking to a Scottish woman, you know, and it was so beautiful, but I worked on it for hours, but it took so much out of me to do that project that like it was effort to get
Yeah.
anything really well, apart from English language or languages. I was fine with that, write a story. But you're right, the and I remember the girls would have jam jars in my class when I was at last year of primary, with stationery in, and everything was beautifully presented, and I was always just a bit messy and a bit
Yeah.
scruffy, and I kind of keep my bedroom tidy, and why is it really hard to, and you just sort of feel like you're failing and it feels
Yeah.
hard. So there's something quite liberating about this age, where, and also the knowledge that we have societally now, where you go, oh, okay, right, I can stop pretending, or I can stop trying
Mm.
so hard. But then who is actually underneath? And I think creatively, a lot of the women I know, and men actually, but particularly when I think about the women who I know who work in creative industries, they are neurodivergent. That's how their brain works. They can't do a 9 to 5. They're thinking about things, and that's how they make sense of the world, and that's how they can communicate work to the world. And did you find, so you did drama at school, and then what happened? Did you go to university? Did you go to drama school? What happened? Did you just go straight into work?
So, in London. So, after my Scottish hires, so that would have been 17. I mean, I was obsessed with going to drama school from as soon as I knew about it. I don't know if you remember that there was that program on TV about Sylvia Young's. I don't know if there's still some.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I think when I first saw that, I must have been like 11 or 12. And I was like, that has to be my life. And I remember begging my parents, being like, please send me down there, please. And they were like, you're not going to drama school until you've done your exams, until you've got your results. So didn't do that. But then once I'd got my exams and things, I was like, well, I'm not going to university, I'm going to drama school. I'm going to drama school. And I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I had one speech and drama teacher who happened to know about a few of the drama schools, and she helped me to apply. And then my mum would fly down with me, and we would stay and have a weekend in London and do all the auditions. And it all felt like this, really far off dream. And then I got into the acting degree course at Arts Ed. So I moved down to London literally the week after I turned 18. So it was quite a shock to the system for me and for my mum and dad because I went from sort of living at home and fairly, strict boundaries and all girls school, and being fairly, well, contained, and then moving into a flat with people I'd never met before. So it was amazing, but also
Yeah.
yeah,
So fun.
quite
Wild.
a shock to the senses. So I mean, I sort of think back now and I think, wow, I don't really know how my mum and dad slept at night, because it was, such a different way of life, but it
Yeah.
was great. And yeah, I loved every minute of it. I know not everybody enjoys their time at drama school, but for me it was like medicine. If we're talking about creativity being healing, well, for everybody, but even more so for neurodivergent people, it was just the best system, because it was doing what I loved all day, every day, but also every hour was accounted for. It was scheduled. I knew where I had to be. I cared about it enough that I wasn't going to be late or not do the work. I took it all very seriously. And then I was surrounded by people who were also into the same thing. So, what's not to love? I don't know if you had the same experience. Did you?
I didn't go to drama school, so I was at Central Television Workshop from the age of 11 to 18, and we got to do the RSC, and we got to do television shows and things like that. And then I did a showcase at the Groucho Club when I was 18, and I got signed to an agent. And so I decided not to go, and then I just started working. But I really missed the structure of that was what was the doubt, like the problem for me with being a jobbing actress was I was still living in the Midlands, and I just did not know how to make this life work because everybody else was in a 9 till 5, and I was going down to London a lot, and I did a lot of television shows, did loads of TV, and then reality television started kicking in, and there was just less work, and I was suddenly really unsure about who I was and what I was doing. So I totally understand that when you're in that environment and you've got all day, every day. I remember shooting a film in Whitstable a few years ago, and I went down for the week, and I slept for 17 hours across the entire week because I was so excited. Properly hyper focused. And there was one day when they said, "Oh, you've wrapped. It's 9 o'clock. You can go now, Esther. It's one of the last days." And I went, "Can I just stay?" And I stayed till 1 o'clock, and me and the makeup artist were in this caravan. And just like I just wanted to be in the environment. There was no, just being lit up from the inside, and I was not tired. And again, it's sort of understanding how your system works. So when you came out of drama school, did you sign to an agent? And were you already writing at that point as well?
I was signed to an agent. Was I writing? Not really, I don't think. I don't think writing really properly came until motherhood, actually. I mean, I would have scribbled bits and pieces, and I enjoyed writing, and I enjoyed the written aspects of the course. But in terms of my own ideas and writing, no, not really. I hadn't got into that by then.
And what was the catalyst for the writing?
Motherhood, I think. Genuinely, I think because one of the other questions you had me thinking about was when did I realize I needed creativity? I think was the question. And I think it was only when I didn't have it regularly that then I put two and two together and realized, oh, this is something that actually sustains me, and that I actually need as much as I need food, water, and exercise. And breathe. And in those early days of motherhood, when they're really little, and again, it was fairly structured with the nap times, and I enjoyed having a routine. With that, I would use the nap times to write and to come up with ideas and to find any way to generate life force outside of being attached to this beautiful little thing, albeit a lot of the content was around motherhood, and my ideas for projects was, using motherhood. But that was when I realized, I need to generate some things for myself. And so maybe writing, I don't even think I set out thinking, oh, I want to now get into writing. It was just the mode that I had available to me, that I could do by myself when the baby was asleep.
And did you find how do you get your ideas? How were you getting your ideas at that point?
I think I really was starving for connection and to be able to still do cultural things with a baby. And obviously there was a few of the cinema screening things available. So I would it was Frankie at the time, take Frankie in the sling to those. And as he got older, obviously there was music classes and things, which I actually really liked. Because I think I was like, well, if I'm not acting now, I can at least sing a nursery rhyme.
Go to winter time. I used to like those as well.
a lot of mums hated that, but I actually quite liked it. And actually, I started up something called Baby's Book Club when Frankie was about 9 months old, because I felt like we needed a story class for babies. There wasn't enough of that. But anyway, that's another story. So and then I was also trying to get, I suppose, some of my frustration and loneliness out on the page, things that I was struggling with. And then I just thought, God, I can't be the only one feeling like this. Other people in the creative industry who's just become a mum must be starving for the, content and connection. And so I reached out to the Soho Theatre, actually, they had a part on their website which was like, contact us if you have any ideas. And I was like, I've got an idea. And so I thought, well, if cinemas can do it, then surely theatres could have a programme for new parents and babies. I don't know quite how easy that would be to run, but I told them my idea, and they invited me in. So I went in with Frankie, my baby, and we talked about how it would work. And we put together a program of some of the performances that they were having, and asked the performers would they be happy doing a showing for parents with new babies. And they did, and they called it Soho Screamers, and it was the first time a theatre had done that. And I think more theatres do that now. But that kind of gave me energy, and also I got to meet other parents schlepping into town with all of their baby paraphernalia, going, God, what is this? But also how great to be in a theatre, even if we only see 5 minutes of a show because we're up and down breastfeeding or whatever. And actually, do you know the comedian Bridget Christie?
Yes.
Yeah. So she was one of the first comedians to do her show at the time in front of, and I think she even mentions it in the book that she wrote, like, as one of the hardest things she's ever done was standing up and doing her stand up in front of an audience of like crying babies and loads of boobs. Yeah. And actually Phoebe Waller-Bridge did Fleabag, or maybe her other show, I can't remember what it was called, but I interviewed her about it, and so it was quite an experience for the performers as well as for the parents. But yes, those were the incredible things that were coming out of the nap times.
But what gives you the confidence to just go, this is what's missing, I'm just going to make this happen?
I don't know. I think it's that thing, isn't it? When you have an idea that you're really excited about as a performer or a creative, and you just know there's like really strong energy behind it. You don't know how it's going to happen, but it's like you feel bold enough to take that first step, or you see a niche like that needs filled. I can be the one. I have enough enthusiasm to make this happen. And I think anything that I've done that's been a bit sort of different or unusual has come from that same energy, that same spark. Like when I did Kaleidoscope Minds with my co-editor Catherine, we connected over Instagram, and I had this idea about the anthology, and she said, oh yeah, I would love to do that too. We had no idea what we were doing on the publishing front. Like, we both had our work published in other people's work, but we'd never thought to produce something of our own. But we put the call out for submissions, and then every new step, just kind of the path became clear. And I think when there is something you really believe in, especially if it's going to serve other people in a way, that doors open and people are responsive because they can tell how lit up you are and how much it means, and also that other people are going to benefit from it.
It's weird, isn't it? It's strange, because hearing you say that again, that really resonates, because I think, sometimes I've done things and you think, well, how would you know that would work? I don't know, I just had a feeling it would, and you just start moving, and I can't really explain it. It's kind of intuition, and it just feels energetically right, and can't give you more than any more than that, which is strange when you think about it. But it sounds amazing, and I've actually got this Kaleidoscopic Minds. So now I should know this actually, but which came first? Because this book you wrote, and it's so beautiful, your poetry book, and then this book you edited, but one of your poems is in here. So which came first?
So Bleed Between the Lines came first, and Kaleidoscopic Minds, the one that you've got, came second, and then there's another one that came third, which is, in fact, I've got it here to show you, which is green, the same. Can you see it?
Ah, okay, yes. So you wrote your book, Bleed Between the Lines, and it is so beautiful, and I really connect to what you write so much. It just makes sense. It feels right. What made you write this book? Because it's poetry, isn't it? It's beautiful.
It's poetry. So that's a bit of a different story, because I didn't know I was writing it, if that makes sense. So I was going through a real health crisis and had tried lots of different things, and sometimes I'd have a bit of a breakthrough with symptoms and then I would be ill again, and I couldn't really make sense of what was happening, and I felt really let down by so many health practitioners and mainstream medicine. And then I happened to read this book called Wild Power. Can you see it? I don't know if because I've put myself to the side.
Oh yes, I can see it. Yes, Wild Power. I'm going to write that down.
And it describes the different phases of the menstrual cycle, your inner seasons, and the different energies and strengths that come with the different times of the month. And it talked about something called menstrual cycle awareness, which is when you track your own cycle. So you work out which day you're on and you just check in with yourself every day. Whether that's sitting quietly or you write down a few words or you share it with somebody else. And I just felt so lost that I thought, okay, well, that is something that I can do, because some of my symptoms were really hormonally related, they seemed to be. And also premenstrually, all my symptoms got so much worse. And I really struggled with my mood and cognition around the menstrual time as well. So I thought, okay, well, that's something that I can commit to myself without needing anybody else to validate it or tell me I'm doing it wrong or whatever. So I would just chart my cycle really, and my brain capacity at that time was so limited and my cognition was so affected that I felt like I couldn't write from my coherent mind, if that makes sense. So actually like checking in with my body, and as out there as this might sound to some people, sort of communicating with my womb space, I felt like I could write from that place. So just to sort of simplify it, you have winter, spring, summer, autumn, and the winter is when you got your period, the spring is the pre-ovulatory phase, summer is when you're ovulating, and then autumn is your premenstrual phase. So I would sort of feel into what I was feeling that day, what my body was feeling, and also how it related to sort of like an external season, because we all know, what the typical seasons feel like, don't we? And from that place, I would actually write like, dear day 23, and then just write from there and see, what came up. And it was honestly, I didn't know if it was going to be poetry. I was just writing. And then I think several months went by and I'd collated like reams and reams of notebooks of this stuff. And so I just started typing some of it up. And a lot of it was kind of rhyming or poetical or these little short vignettes, I guess, that I thought, oh, there's a narrative here. I wonder if I could collate this into an anthology, and maybe if this is what I'm experiencing, maybe other people are experiencing this, or I've never read any period poetry, or I've never really read people talking about their really intimate inner experience. And I'd come across an independent female publisher called Blood Moon Poetry. So it just felt very aligned to send them my manuscript by that point, because I sort of edited it into a coherent structure. And I remember actually I sat and finished it in the Royal Academy cafe, which I love going there to write, by the way. And I sent the email off, and then I think literally the next day they replied saying, we would love to publish this.
Oh my god.
So I was just like, but again, although it was a different sort of route, it was that same thing of, once I had the spark of the idea that this could be something, I was the vision of what it should be or could be was so clear that I was really bold in just going for it, which is why I think it worked.
That feeling as well, first of all, I am so with you. I like to write in nice places. I just find it inspiring when you sort of feel like, oh yes, there's something about that. But to get that response so quickly,
yeah, it was really exciting.
It must have been so thrilling.
Yeah, and I really believed in the project, and I believed that it would serve a bigger purpose than just me writing poems. Like I felt like I wanted to really connect with other women on this level.
You've really got me thinking actually as well about the fact that there are certain projects that I work on, and I like I had a play on a few years ago, and I thought about it for about a year, but then I wrote it in 5 days, but I'd already booked the venue, and then I sat and then we had the rehearsal on the Monday, and on the Wednesday I hadn't put pen to paper, and I locked myself away, and I remember crying in the kitchen saying, what the fuck am I doing? And my husband went, look, this is how you work, this is how you'll do it, and you'll be fine. And I went away and I wrote it 12 hours a day for 5 days, but I sort of listened to what was being said. But I just had this faith that it would work. And I'm somebody, and I'm sure from talking to you, you're the same. I have millions of ideas every day. And some of them I question. Is this right? Is this not? But there are certain ones I don't question and I just go for. And maybe that is like the litmus test or whatever. If I just instinctively know, it's almost like the ones that you question too much, maybe that's not the system. Maybe it's the ones like this where you go, this is something you're almost channeling, aren't you? You know, you couldn't string a sentence together, but you're talking from a different part of your body and allowing all of this to come out. And it is so beautiful. And it's, like I say, I really connect to it. And you just somewhere, you knew that. And then you were bold about it.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's I think I can say this to you because we need to come on to this because Susie said, "Oh, Esther talks about him." Joe Dispenza.
Yeah. So I said to Susie, we had a very funny conversation about it. I was like, "You need to look at Dr. Joe Dispenza," and she was going, "Joe Dispenza? No, Joe Dispenza. But why are you saying her name weird?" And I was like, "No, it's Joseph Dispenza." But yes, yeah.
Like, I did almost feel when I was writing, and I was, so brain foggy and incoherent that it was coming from somewhere else. So that's I can't really articulate it better than that. But he says, doesn't he, when it comes to ideas, like to really change or achieve something, the amount of initial energy you need with an idea is like that the beginning of it is so important. Like the more you can push at the beginning with that enthusiasm and passion sets everything else in motion. It's like a domino effect, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I really had never considered that before, that I can procrastinate on loads of ideas, but actually there are certain ones that I just do and just know they'll work. There's also a big magic with Elizabeth Gilbert as well, and she talks about that. And she talks about ideas going elsewhere, doesn't she? If you don't use them, somebody else will. And I've seen
like that a bit sometimes. Do you?
Yes, I do.
A project that I've been sitting on for about 18 months, and I'm like in the back of my head, God, you really got to do something with that before somebody else does it. But there's obviously a reason I haven't done it yet, Yeah. So
it is where it can be a motivator, but like you say, the ones that you don't complete, why is that? So you did this, and then Kaleidoscope Minds. Talk to me about how that came about then. I know you said you spoke to somebody on Instagram, but what was the thought process?
So I think what happened was I did a post on Instagram about my ADHD diagnosis because I'd had a couple of conversations, and again, like the period related topics, it seemed to be something that people really wanted to talk about, but that felt quite vulnerable. And also there's a lot of shame tied up with it, which is really sad. And I think less so now because more people are talking about it. But, 7 or whatever years ago, it still felt quite, I don't want to say embarrassing, awkward, how to start it. And I love conversations like that. I'm always the one at the dinner party or in the friendship group to like talk about the elephant in the room. And I don't really do very well with small talk. So someone had said to me, "Oh, why don't you mention this on your page?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do a post." So then I just, again, it was to try and help people. I did some book recommendations that had really helped me when I got my diagnosis. And also I think I put an excerpt from a book which was about how much creativity can help with your overall well-being, but also just channeling your strengths and finding connection and meaning in things, because we're great pattern spotters. You know, we can find patterns in literally anything. And so I posted that, and then a poet who I had come across through another platform called Mum's Poem Press, the Mum Poem Press, during lockdown, she messaged me saying, "Oh my God, I'm not diagnosed, but I am a GP and I think I've got ADHD, and your post has really helped me. I'd love to talk to you more." And then we just had a few messages back and forth. And then I can't remember how much longer after that, we had a conversation, and we're just like, oh, wouldn't it be really great to, you know, have more poetry around neurodivergence and women in particular, and how that can be disguised, or how you know, how do you mother alongside all of these struggles, and how does it affect you hormonally? And there was just so many, it felt very rich for depth of connection with people. So we were just like, okay, let's do an anthology. Again, like I mentioned, had no idea how it was going to ever become an actual book, but we put the call out on Instagram, and we had you know, a huge response. So then we just took it from there, and then we found an art designer, and we worked out how we were going to publish it, and it ended up being quite a long process because we didn't know how long it would take, but we did it. And
how did you choose which pieces went in? Was it just what connected with you, or
we wanted it to cover like a really sort of expansive range of experience and age. And so we both went away and read all the submissions, which, by the way, is such a satisfying process. Like, I love reading other women's work, and then just seeing how could we tell the story of being a neurodivergent woman as best as possible. And we had then made our shortlist, and we compared our shortlist, and then there might have been times where we agreed, and then other times, you know, she could have seen something that I didn't, and then we would sort of work out, you know, which way was best. But that whole weaving together, you know, an arc or a shape or a narrative is a really fun part of the process for me. And it was obviously hard turning down people, especially when it's something that's so vulnerable and exposing, and, you know, how incredible that they felt safe enough to share such an intimate part of themselves with us. But obviously we can't publish everybody, so you know, we were very careful in the way that we responded to people. But yeah, I think we just wanted to serve as many women as possible in terms of the wealth of and of experience, really.
And you've done another. I haven't got the other one. I will get it. You've done a second one.
I can send you a copy. Actually, I can send you a little copy.
Oh, thank you. Is there other plans for a third?
So we did a second because there was such an amazing response to the first one, and also people kept messaging saying, "Oh, will there be another chance to submit?" And we took the first one. Catherine lives up north, and she did a big book event up there, and then we got asked to the Henley Literary Festival, which was amazing, and we had an open mic. So there was like a real interest for more neurodivergent voices. And then I don't know if we'll do a third, but we have just done a young person's magazine, which is an online resource for young people, which was amazing to see how they articulated their experience of being neurodivergent in the world. Because I think as well, especially within a school environment, you really just don't know how children are coping, or what does it actually feel like to have a brain that's working in that way. And I went into my son's school to do a little neurodivergent poetry workshop with children with different types of neurodivergent diagnosis, and it was so lovely. And it felt like how we sort of touched upon it earlier, when you're in a group with your people, like they just felt very free to talk about how it felt. And someone might say, "Oh, my head is buzzing like this," and someone, "Oh, that's how I feel." And just this connection and freedom to admit their struggles or their strengths, or how cool was it that they could do this. It was just really heartening and a special thing to bring people, like-minded people, that So
Excuse me.
yes, I don't know whether we'll do another book. We probably will, but maybe a bit further down the line when we've got everyone's doing different things at the moment.
I think there's something so beautiful about creating in a space where you can express how you see things and hear other people say that they have that same experience. Remember, before Susie and I started our podcast, Limited Time Only, we were discussing what we would make our podcast about, and I had said I think I'd quite like to do a podcast called Am I Normal, where you talk about like your experiences and then you realize, oh, other people have those same experiences. And my daughter has dyslexia, and I remember we moved her to a Steiner school for a couple of years, and she came home and said things that I had never even considered. I can read the board now because it's a blackboard instead of a whiteboard. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, the words used to move around on the whiteboard, but I'm on a chalkboard now and I can read it. And I thought, yeah, but that she wouldn't know that that was any different because she was a child. So the fact that you are creating those environments where any age really, but I mean it's great if we can start them off younger and so that they can know this is fine. I'm this is just how I work, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not perceived in the way the structures work don't quite work, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. We're all a bit different. You've created a life for yourself which pulls on all these different threads and expresses you in different ways, being an actress and a writer and a poet. And which one currently lights you up the most, would you say, or do you need that variety?
I do love the variety, but I definitely go in waves and sort of chapters in my life. And I don't know if you resonate with this, but it also really depends on my mothering chapter as well.
Yeah.
So like for what I feel like I've got capacity for, or what is how many different directions am I being pulled in. And it was 18 months ago, I think, since I did the play with Susie, which felt like I could do that right there and then at that time, and that I had worked out the sort of system that I needed, that it would work and the kids would be fine. Right now I'm thinking, I don't know how that would actually fit right now, because there's so many other moving parts. So my youngest is in his final term of primary school, and that feels like a really big milestone for me. He's really little, he's about to have eye surgery, so I feel very protected. He's going to be fine. It's an operation I had.
Yeah.
It's like I feel very protective of him, and also just so aware now that I've got a teenager of how quickly this phase of childhood will move on once he gets to secondary school. So I'm sort of really like, clinging to sort of that feeling and that time with him. And he sort of needs me in different ways with, hospital appointments, etc. So I'm really trying to create spaciousness around motherhood at the moment, which is, feels important. And so that lends itself really to the project that I'm doing now, which is a writing project, and being able to fit that in the school window and still feel available for the kids. Also, I don't know, can you remember the young teenage years with your daughter? But that's also, posing interesting challenges and changes that although you're less required kind of physically, the amount of headspace some of these challenges are requiring, there's almost like less time to think creatively or to have time to, be out doing amazing creative things. So I'm the next sort of 4 months, I'm just trying to be a little bit patient with myself and write as much as I can. And also I'm editing for an anthology, and that just works in terms of, great, I get to read loads of other people's work and be inspired by their writing and put these things together, but I'm not putting myself under so much pressure to produce my own stuff.
And the writing project that you're working on, is that like a play? Is it poetry? What are you writing?
So my personal thing, which is menstruality related, funnily enough. I don't know what it's going to be. It's a lot of writing around that subject, and I think it might end up still being poetry, but there's a chance that it could end up being performance, let's say. But the anthology that I'm working on is a Red School menstruality anthology of poetry and stories, which I'll be including some of my own work in that, but mainly it's other women's experiences. And I can't get enough of reading around that subject. I find it so fascinating when women open up about that side of themselves.
And I suppose linking back to your health issues, and there's a certain sort of sense of empowerment when you understand that, isn't there? And your health issues, are they okay now?
I don't think I'm not sure I'm ever going to go back to whatever I thought like normal was. I've had to really adjust my expectations of myself. So my health issues started after the COVID vaccine, which obviously I know is a kind of sensitive subject, so I won't talk too much about that. But that was the catalyst for a multitude of problems. And I was really very unwell for a long time, quite bedbound by symptoms. And it was really, really, really hard to keep going, actually, but to mother and to think that I would ever, well, the fact that I even managed to do a poetry book or get back up on the stage or anything like that, my brain for so long, I just couldn't string a sentence together. So it's much, much better than it was. And I have seen so many amazing health professionals that have taken me seriously and helped me. And then combined with this life phase of perimenopause and trying to sort out hormones and also mental health after what was basically a nervous breakdown, really, you can't just go back to functioning on at the same level that you did before. I have to be very mindful not to push myself too hard. So, giving up drink, that helped massively. So I haven't drunk in 5 years. I wouldn't go back to that because I know that it's just not worth risking my health. I look at my commitments, but again, having my cycle awareness helps with that because I try to plan things around when I know that I'm going to have more energy to do them. And knowing that there's going to be a bit of a ramification if I do sort of overexert myself, push myself, I'm probably going to take a bit of a setback. And I have to be very mindful with what I eat and, how I look after myself and just really kind of sensible, boring things in supplements and all those sorts of things. And actually environment too is a big one. But touch wood, I would say that I'm the best I've been probably since it all started. Thank God.
That's brilliant. I'm so pleased to hear that. And I think there's something about, I keep hearing a lot about this, about leaning into the feminine. We live in quite a masculine world. And actually, like we do have cycles and we sort of have ignored those for a long time. And actually there is a way that our body's supposed to operate. And I'm glad that you are feeling like you know what your boundaries are and you know how to take care of yourself. And I sort of think back to what you said at the beginning of the conversation, which is how much you used to love acting, and you obviously still do love acting, but now it's more about using your own voice has come further forward. And and I think it's something that I'm experiencing as well. In terms of, it was something to hide behind, and now I'm happier to speak up and know who I am a lot more. And sometimes I think that comes with, so I have Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and I'm like you, I have to watch my energy. I can't go all the time. I will burn out. There are things that go on with that. But part of the respecting of those boundaries and of how my health works and understanding is, I know it is actually freeing me up to use my voice and not hide so much. And I think it's almost as a peeling back of the layers to understand actually who I am at the center, and that I probably am more introverted than I gave myself credit for. And so there's something sometimes about illness that means that you end up protecting that person inside a little bit more,
Yeah.
and put those boundaries in place and create the work, and your voice is coming out more and more, isn't it? The things you want to explore.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And that what you said really resonates. And I don't know if you've found this, but I'm so much better at saying no now to things. Like I think sometimes people think I'm a little bit cutthroat, but it's only because I know that it's just not worth saying yes to the things that A, are going to take up precious energy that you've got limited availability of, and B,
Yeah.
why put yourself in situations and environment and surround yourself with people that don't, you know, lift you up or connect with you, because life's too short, you know.
It
And I
is.
think that had a really people pleasing element to me before, and it's not that I don't still have that to a certain extent, but really far less than I did, because you have
Yeah.
to be fiercely boundaried when you know. And also I think the inconsistency of health, I never knew how long I was going to feel well for. So there was that
Mm.
sense of, okay, I am, but what am I actually going to get done, or what am I going to do that brings me joy, or, you know, that really helps me to sort of be present with the children, rather than trying to achieve everything on a to-do list, or say yes to all of the, you know, school quizzes or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I really think it's true. I think, you know, I've been sofa bound on more than one occasion and had the odd day where I've been typing on the computer and then gone, I, I, I can't. I've suddenly stopped being able to function. And then remember that happened about 6 months ago, and I said, I need to. It was really weird. It was my brain was a complete capacity, and I went and got in the bath. And my husband was so brilliant. He's like, stop everything. And I knew I'd got deadlines and stuff, and I was like, okay. And then I went and lay on the sofa, and he's like, do you want anything? I was like, no, I just need to be left alone to close my eyes and have no stimulation
Yeah.
and nothing. I can't have anything. And I think, and I had a nervous breakdown in my 20s. And I think once you've experienced that and you know what your capacity is, like now I will often say, look, these are my priorities, my family, these projects. Like I want to do March House, and I know what I want that to look like. And I want to prioritize, yes, friends, but like this is, I've got too many things booked in that week, nothing else for a few days. It's understanding that, and like you say, you can seem a bit cutthroat or boring, or but it's understanding this is how, again, going back to the beginning, this is how I work. And I know that for you to get the best of me and for me to get the best of me, this is how what I need. um and I'm so glad that you are feeling so, you know, feeling so much better and have and understand and the work that you're able to create. Because I've read both these. I know you didn't, you edited this and you've got a brilliant poem in it, but it's just so beautiful and it is making a difference and people are reading it and feeling seen,
I
feeling
think
seen.
I think that's the thing, and that's the thing, because I think you asked me like, what, you know, what did you want to get from writing the book? Or the main thing that's been so amazing is the connection with other women,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
getting messages from people to say, oh my God, I had no idea that this is why I was feeling this way. I didn't know anything about the inner seasons, and you've directed me, you know, to a language that I understand. And obviously
Yeah.
that's down to this book. But I still get messages, you know, it's been out in the world for however long, and you know, I don't really talk about it that much anymore, apart from when we're having these kind of conversations. But every now and again, someone will pop up, and you know, or someone will say, "Oh, I met somebody who's read your book," and you know, it's someone that I have no idea who they are, but it's made an impact, and I think that's what life's about, isn't it? It's really
Yeah.
connecting with people on a much deeper level, and it makes me sad, I think, that we live in this very linear world, and you know, there's such a pull towards the masculine, and I see a lot of women feeling like that's how they need to show up, and that they almost would rather not have a cycle or not, you know, acknowledge their cyclical being, because it would be easier to show up like a man, because that's
Yeah.
what so much of life demands. But when you can really tune into that side of yourself, you understand yourself more than you could ever possibly imagine.
Yeah.
You know, it's magic. It really is. Um, and I can't remember why I started saying that, but
Well, and also there's something about you have a gift, you have creative gift that you can articulate stuff that some people can't. You're articulating stuff, and then people are seeing it, reading it, and connecting with it, and feeling seen, and that is one of the beauty of storytelling, of creativity. I think it's being vulnerable and sharing something, and we are all human, and it does connect us, and it does make you feel less alone, and you know, when you talked about taking you could only communicate, like you felt like you got nothing cognitively going on, but from your womb you felt like you had stuff coming out of you, word wise,
yeah.
you know, and that, I think we don't have enough downtime. We feel like we're supposed to be pushing, 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 have a side hustle. Here's my 5 a.m. routine, do this, do that. And you can feel like you're supposed to be on that treadmill yourself, but actually it's the moments of quietness, it's the moments of stillness where the ideas come to me, and I get clear on what it is that I want. And
Yeah.
the fact that you know, as I say, you're yeah, it's just sharing stuff, and it's important, it's really important. I think creativity is so important in
And
connection.
and just touching on what you said, the creative cycle follows, the menstrual cycle, really. And
Yeah.
ideas are born in a void, in the darkness. They come from nowhere, often. And they go through the germination process, and then they bloom. And then, you've got the sort of editing and discerning what it is you're doing. And then you birth the project out into the world, and you start again, and also there's a grief when you birth a project, and is whether it's the show is finished or the book is out there, you have that fallow time before you then start again. But what I felt really excited about recently was that Chloe Zhao, director of Hamnet,
Oh yes.
discovered this book, has talked about it, and she also has said, I had no idea that on my period, if I was still enough and really tuned into what was going on with my body, is my most creative time. And that is what's so exciting. You've got people going, oh God, I've got my period, I just want it to be finished. And I do understand, because life demands so much of us that we don't always have the time or the resources to be able to have the stillness or the solitude. But even if you can carve out a tiny bit, some of the insights you get about life or yourself or what it is you're working on, it's, if you're open to it and don't dismiss it as, woo fantasy, it is extraordinary what you can connect with.
Yeah.
So I love that she has had this conversation, and I really feel like it will have ripple effects, hopefully, because she's got such a profile.
Yes, and I love the fact that they've danced at the, We
Yeah.
Found Love in Rihanna and everything, and it's just it's allowing yourself to be still, to be silent. I didn't know about that when you're in the winter phase, that apparently you get more creative. I'm going to read Wild Power. I mean, it's mad, isn't it? It's literally about 2 years ago I understood what it meant by day one of your cycle. I was like, I don't know, is that when you've had your period? I don't know. And I'm 48 and I will be coming to the end of that in the next few
So
years.
many women are in that position. So many.
Yeah, it's mad, but I think also season wise, through the winter months, I get into October, November, and I can't stay awake. So and then I've started to respect that. Okay, I do kind of go dormant as much as I can do through those months. I mean, my husband calls me the dormouse,
Yeah.
and it's sort of just understanding and respecting that as much as you can, and not constantly consuming, because I think creation comes in the stillness. Um, which is why it's really helpful for me to step away from social media as much as I can, because I am not someone that can be on there and I don't get in, get out. I get in there and I'm gone for an hour. It's a nightmare.
Don't want it on your period. If I could give you one piece of advice, just have a week off or even a few days, because having all of that content during that time is just like really not what you need. You want to be as little as possible and just letting go and allowing yourself to sort of hear and feel yourself rather than everybody else's
noise
energy.
And do this, do that.
And also, you're too vulnerable and raw at that time. You know, that's why things hurt more. That's why, you know, we can take offense or feel upset or jealous or all these things, because we're bleeding. We're in such a open position. You don't go on Instagram on your period.
Okay, that's
my
going
one word
to be,
advice.
that should be like a I'll call that the name of this conversation. Don't go on Instagram on your period. I've had you for such a long time. I'm so sorry. I've just looked
I know, I'm having such a great time. I could talk for...
me too. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just get a coffee and we'll sit here all afternoon. Can I just ask you very quick? I mean, I sent you about 25 million questions, but I know that whenever I start, I just know that it's just going to be a chat, which is what I love about it. You mentioned the Red School, so just tell us a little bit about what the Red School is.
So I obviously discovered it through Wild Power, and once I got into sort of my own menstrual cycle awareness practice, I started going on their website, and they had lots of like free resources and courses and things, and I just happened to see an announcement for something called the Menstruality Leadership Program training. And the dates happened to align, and I thought, I need to do this. I need to train. I need to go and be in person with these two amazing women, Alexandra and Shani. I think it's like when you find somebody maybe within the like healing world or self-help world or guru world, and when you hear them speak, it's less like, oh, I need to learn, or more like, something in me is remembering that this is something I should know about. And so it was quite an impulsive decision, and I just checked the dates with my husband. I said, I think I need to do this. I should do this. And he's like, yeah. And it was a week training, and then a following week, a few months later, in person. And it was their last in-person training, and it was incredible. It was the first time that I have been in community with a large number of women. And it just, the energy was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was honestly so beautiful. And it sounds, I don't know what it sounds like hearing me say that, but it just felt, they just honoured the entirety of being a woman. And obviously, I weirdly got my period when I was there, and I've just never felt so cared for or respected or mothered. And everyone just had this openness and vulnerability, and was willing to talk about everything and anything, and all different ages, from sort of 19 through to post-menopausal women who had so much wisdom to share as well, and women who had gone through the menopause already but wanted to still learn about the seasons and their cycles, to sort of make peace with the fact that they didn't have that knowledge before, because there is a grief that comes with not having had the awareness of what was actually happening in your body, or what you might have had access to, that now you no longer bleed, you don't have that emotional landscape. Because the amazing thing is, having all of these seasons, we have got access to so many different parts of ourselves, and like ability to really access all the different emotions, which is obviously great for performance. And I do feel like there's something missing in drama school training, but that's for another time, whereby that it could really be utilized way more to access those sides of ourselves. And so it was the last in-person training they did, and I felt so lucky to have been there, and I made wonderful friends who I'm still in touch with, and a listening partner who I talk to every week, where we have a cycle check-in, because it's like anything, if you're not having these conversations regularly, normal kind of life and pace takes over. It's got to be like an intentional, oh yeah, I am remembering where I'm at in my cycle and what my capacity is, and the lens in which I'm seeing life and not just getting caught up in the scrolling speed or what, you know, life is telling us we should be doing. Because like you just said just now with the winter months, like we're animals, and it's the one obvious link we have to our animal nature is that we can honor and respect. But yeah, they're doing amazing work, and I think a lot of their courses are now online. But yeah, I would recommend anyone checking out their website if they feel so called to.
Yeah, I will make sure that I put that in the notes underneath our chat, because I rather like those women you were talking about. I didn't really know. It's just one of those things. You just get on with it, and it's interesting how you can be so affected by it. Yeah, thank you so much for talking to me. I actually would like to keep you for the 4 hours, but you have a life and boundaries and stuff like that. It's been absolutely joyful to hear about your processes and your work and your life. So thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks for having me, and I love what you're doing. So thank you for creating this space. That's great.
You.
It was such a joy to talk to Steph. I really actually would just like to go for a herbal tea with her and have a really good chat, because I really felt that I understood what it was that she was saying, and I felt that we had similar views on things and similar experiences. I'd love to know if any of what we talked about resonated with you. I think that creative brains can often be sort of similar, and that we do need that downtime for creation, and that a lot of people do hit a certain age and realise what they're prepared to perform and what they're not prepared to perform anymore. Steph is actually a guest on my podcast, Limited Time Only, that I do with my podcast wife, Susie Riddell, who I mentioned at the beginning. We're doing a live at the Hearth in London on July the 16th. So I will put the link to the tickets down there below. If you haven't listened to Limited Time Only, you will love it. We've won several awards, including a BBC Sound sponsored award that we received at the BBC. It's a comedy. There's a lot of comedy in it. We do comedy sketches. We have really good guests. And it's I don't know why I'm plugging that on here, because it's also my show and I'm a creative. But yeah, do check that out. It's really good. And my friend Susie, for those of you who like The Archers, is actually in The Archers. She's been in it donkey's years. She's Tracy Horrobin, and she was Kate Aldridge before that. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Yeah, if you enjoyed it, have a little look below. And I keep forgetting to say, please like, subscribe, share with your friends if you find these conversations beneficial or interesting. I hope you have a lovely week. I am back next week with another fabulous creative. Take care. Have a lovely week. Lots of love.